Okay, you joined us to learn how to create reports and dashboards in Power BI, and we've finally arrived. Welcome to part 8 of Up and Running with Power BI for Dynamics 365. We're finally going to design our reports. Now, remember, it took us a while to get here because in reality, preparing your data is the more important, the more error prone, the more time consuming part of this. So I know you want to produce these great reports and an interface that makes it easy for the people you support to do self-service and create their own reports. That's the objective. But before you're ready to do that, a lot of connecting, joining, and transforming needs to happen to make sure you have the right data to make the reports work well. And we'll even talk about some of that and share some cases of where I didn't do a good job of that when we go through the examples here in a second. Some great links for you. So I'm going to talk through all of these principles when I go through the design process. Designing is a huge process, so I'm just kind of giving you the tip of the iceberg. I tried to grab the things that I think you may more commonly want to do as someone who's designing dashboards using Dynamics data. But designing reports has many links and lots of documents and lots of training available. So by no means will you be a deep expert in all of these things by the time you're done. But here are some links you can go to find out more about some of the topics I'll talk about in the session today. All right, so here's where we left off. Remember, we joined our tables and we did some transformation. So when we finished that process, we were left back on this screen with our data model, and we want to move forward from there. So again, back over on the left-hand side of the screen, we're going to navigate to the interface for designing our reports. So we're going to click that. And if you were with us earlier, this looks familiar because this is a lot like the way we designed reports with Power BI Online. We've just got a few more tools here we can use. So I'm going to go ahead and start right away. I'm going to choose a visualization to put out there. I just click on it. It drops it on the page for me. What do I want to visualize? Well, let's start with some opportunity information. So I'm going to put the owner ID inside the axis field. So that's going to be displayed down the axis. So I want to see the estimated value of all opportunities by owner ID. A couple of clicks and drags and I've created a full report. But something doesn't look very good about that owner ID, right? That's giving me what's the owner's ID, not their name, but the ID of the person who owns that opportunity. I want the name. My users don't want to have to look at a bunch of IDs that they don't understand. They want to look at a user-friendly name. This is why we joined to the user table, so that we could get that information. And there we have it. Now we've got the full name in a nice user-friendly format presented directly in the report. Now, if below visualizations I click the little roller brush, that gives me lots of formatting tools. So if you need to go in here and do things like change names and titles, remove titles, change font sizes, do color changes, all of those things are available under the little paint roller. I'm just going to do a couple of quick ones while I'm here. I gave this a more user-friendly name. It tried to kind of automatically create one using the field names, but those are kind of ugly. I got rid of the username under the axis just because it's very obvious to the user what that is, so I could clean that up. Now, I might have also wanted to rename that estimated value field. I'm not going to take the time to do all that this time. Instead, let's move on to the next visualization. Let's start to look at activities. That's what we came here for. This time I'm smarter. I'm putting full name on the axis rather than a user ID, and I just want a count of the activities. So what I can do is I can just drop the activity ID on there. It automatically makes it count those activities, which is what I want. Cool. So now I see the total number of activities by user directly in that dashboard. You know, one of the other things I also wanted is one of those cool goal charts on here so I can see how much progress has been made towards a goal. So I'm going to put the same thing over here and say, here's the total number of activities for all of my users, since I'm looking at all of this at once here, not by separate bars, and I want a target. What's my target value? Well, that's not anywhere available yet. Now I could store that in Excel or in CRM, but I can also just go up and hit enter data and create an entirely new table on the fly. Not a best practice because this table just lives in Power BI. If I want to change values, I have to open Power BI. But for today, I just wanted to show you how it works. So I created a table, naming it goal. I created a team goal for this page, and I created an individual goal that we'll look at a little bit later. Cool. So now I've created a whole new entity, a whole new table. It's going to take a second to update and make that table available to me. There it is. Now let's grab the team goal. Let's drag that over into the target value. And just like that, I've created a really cool goal chart and embedded it directly into the first page of my dashboard. Now, I probably don't want that goal to drill down when I change the pipeline and activity numbers, right? I want that goal to stay for the whole team, not for whoever I've clicked on. So I went over to Format, I clicked Edit Interactions, and then I turned off interaction for that. So notice when I click the pipeline by user, it updates activities, but not the goal. And when I click activities, it updates the pipeline, but not the goal. So the page is interactive, but I have control over what elements on the page actually interact with other elements on the page. Kind of cool. You know, one other thing I'd like to do is I think I'd like to limit the items that show up on this page, right? Because I'm looking at activities, not just phone calls and tasks and that kind of stuff. I'm looking at incident resolutions and opportunity closes too. Let's get rid of those. So I'm just going to create a filter for the page. I'm going to select all, then I'm just going to deselect those couple of things. And now you can even see at the top of that, it says, okay, these items are not included now. So now I'm going to just show the relevant data, and I'm not going to allow the user to filter that in or out. I'm going to set that filter for the user myself. So we've designed the first page of our report. There it is. This is what leadership wants to see. We could add more to it, and you'll see some other elements on our next page that we could come back and add to it. But let's go ahead and talk about the second page of our report now. So remember, the first page was more for leaders, right? So let's go ahead and rename that page something helpful. Manager Overview. Cool. So this is looking at all of our users at once. But now I want to have a page I can drill into that is more a rep detail. So let's look at rep activity and let's name this page accordingly. Now, one of the things I've already said I want to do with this page is I want to be able to drill from that parent page, Manager Overview, down to this rep activity page. Well, how do I do that? Well, what field do I want to drill on? I want to drill by the rep's name. So let's grab that full name field. Let's drop it over here into the pages drill through field. And now you can see that's going to be available. In fact, if you look, there's now a little arrow that's put up there in the upper left corner signifying, hey, this is a drill through page. Click that arrow and you'll drill back to whatever page called it. Now, I want to give my user something that tells me, so what's the full name of the user that I've drilled through here to? So I'm going to put a card visualization on here. Real simple visualization. I can put a number in it or anything I want to. In this case, I'm going to put the full name in it. Now, right now it's just showing the first name. Let's just select one so we can kind of format this. Okay, so I've selected Veronica and wow, that doesn't fit in there well. I don't want to resize the field. I want to resize the data in the field so that it more easily shows up in here so I can see the full name of the user. So, looks good, but it's kind of high. What's going on below that? Oh, okay, it's put the field name in here too. Well, let's go over here to the formatting area again, and let's turn off the category. There we go. Now her name is centered. I can reduce that a little bit, and now the user is going to have the nice experience of having the name of the person they've drilled to available directly inside the report. Cool. Let's start putting some of our other visualizations on here. First of all, I want another goal visualization, just like I did before. Very little magic here. You've done this before. We're going to do essentially the same thing again. We want a goal for the number of activities for this user. So let's grab that activity ID. Let's put that in the value field. It's automatically going to say, okay, based on that field, I'm going to do a count of that, not a sum. I'm not going to add up a bunch of values. I'm just going to count and tell you how many things are in there. And now the target from the goal table that I created is going to be the individual target. Wow, look, Veronica has blown her goal away. That looks awesome. Okay, let's put some more information in here about the user I'm looking at right now. So what I want to do is I want to have a nice stacked horizontal bar that helps me understand how many activities and what type of activities are we talking about. So in the legend, let's drop the type field. So we're going to have activities by type. And in the value, let's do just, again, a count of activity ID. And you can see it gave it that name. I might want to go change that name. I'm not going to worry about that right now. But I did just notice, oh wait, I've got those two activity types in here that I don't want. Why are those showing up? Because I did a page filter before. I actually want a report filter in here. So let's change that to a report filter. So now this filter will apply to all pages in the report, not just to one page. And if I go back to the manager overview page, I can see it was smart enough to say, oh, you move that from page to report wide. Fine, I've set that up on this page for you as well. Cool. So now that's set up. So what next? Let's dive into some deeper, richer, more meaningful visuals that you guys probably saw and were curious about how to make happen. Let's put a grid on the page. Just like I might see a view in CRM, I want to see a grid directly in this Power BI report that shows me some detail about these activities I'm having a look at. So I just drop it in the page, and you can see there under values, I'm just going to drag and drop the fields to values that I want to have be columns on this view. So there's my actual end date. We're going to reformat that in a minute. I do want the activity type. Isn't that cool? Now I can just have this nice, quick, cute column with an icon for type instead of a full name for it. Of course, I want a subject field. Tell me what's going on inside of this activity. And, you know, let's go ahead and put the user's last name on there. Not really needed because we know we're on a drill down page for a user already, but maybe we're going to repurpose this for other reasons, and it would be nice to have it on there just in case. So I've thrown those fields on there. Now, first thing I notice is this actual end field, horrible formatting, because it formatted it automatically as a hierarchy. If I switch to just the field name, great. Now it's just using the value from that field. But you know what? I don't want that date in that format. I switched it from date time to just date, but now I need to change the format of the date too. So I'm going to go do a quick transformation here, change the formatting over on that. I went over to the grid view to do that. So now I go off the grid view, and now you can see, okay, that actual end date looks good for me. So there's my whole grid view. Now this column's a little wide. I want to get rid of that horizontal scroll bar, so I'm just going to drag it over. It's going to remember that for me. So really cool. Next thing I want to do is say, I'd like that subject to be a hot link. Or actually, before I do that, let's just do some basic formatting of this list just to make it pop a little bit more for us. So I just selected from one of the available formats. That stands out nicely. Great. Okay. So we've got a grid on there. It's formatted pretty nicely. I like the way it looks, but I want to go a little bit further with this grid. So one of the things I want to do is I want to just clean up the headers a little bit. Let's change the name of something. So the actual end, not a good field name. Change that to date. That looks a little bit better to me. Again, I could change a lot of things. I've chosen to just change one for now. Now I want to go create that link. So back on this table view, make sure that I'm on the activity table. I'm going to add a new column. Click that button. It adds a whole new column to the table. Again, not in CRM, just in Power BI. Let's rename that column to URL. And now I'm going to paste something in here that looks a little intimidating. This is a DAX code. And this DAX code is going to basically be a CRM URL. So I've gone to CRM, I opened up an activity, I figured out how that URL works, I pasted it in here, then I grabbed a couple of fields from the system and used those to create a dynamic field URL. Now I go to the subject field, I do conditional formatting. Under conditional formatting for subject, I choose URL. It says, okay, where am I going to get the URL for this field from? You're going to get it from that field I just now created, the URL field. There it is. And that's probably enough information. I'm going to click OK. And there it is. There's my URL field. It's going to work, right? If I click it, I'll just go. Well, no, it won't, because remember that activity type I changed into that cute little icon? Well, cute little icons don't work in URLs, and I had to use that field to create the URL. What do? I could go create another new field so I can keep the icon and have the actual value, but I'm actually just going to go back to my transformations, and I'm going to undo those 3 transformations where I replaced existing type values with cute icons. So again, perfect world, I might actually do something where I can have both, but in this case, I'm just showing you how I can go back and undo my transformations very easily if I've done them here in transformations, and then go back and keep working on my report. Let's close and apply those transformations. Going to give them a second to update. When they update, you're going to see some not so subtle updates in my report itself. Almost done. Okay, notice my type column now says phone call. If I scroll down, I see some tasks and emails too. And my account of activity ID by type is also updated. Now if I go look at my link, it's got the right information in it. I click, it opens up a record in CRM. You can see, by the way, there's the URL. That's what I built with my DAX expression. More on that in a minute. Scary term, doesn't need to be. Cool. Now let's go back to our report. One final thing. Everybody likes a good map. Let's drop a map onto this report as well. So now we can map where those activities happened. And we want some meaningful data in here so we can even see, maybe are my reps spending too much time on too few accounts? How can we do that? So I'm going to put the state field from the account entity in here. Now you might say there is no state field in the account entity. I renamed the address one state province field to state. Why did I do that? Because Power BI understands location fields if they're named correctly. So by changing the name to state, it automatically put that on the map for me. I didn't show you that when I did it, but it's as simple as doing a rename. Now let's add some tooltips. So the first tooltip I'm going to add is activity ID, the count of distinct activity IDs. Let's name that something so my end user will know, what does that mean when I see that tooltip? The total contacts made within this state. Oh, okay, here's all the activities somebody did on this state when I hover over it and get a tooltip. Cool. Let's now add the regarding object ID. Remember, that's the link between the activity and, in our case, the account. So I'm going to change that to account of regarding object ID. Well, what is that really doing for me? Let's give it another name. That's the accounts contacted in the state, right? I'm counting the number of regarding object IDs that are in the activity list. So now I know the number of contacts made in a state and how many accounts were contacted via those contacts. And now the last thing I'd like to do is go to the account entity, and I want to put the account ID in there. I'm going to do a count of that again as well. Let's give that a user-friendly name. So what I'm really asking when I get a count of the account IDs is how many accounts are actually in that state. So now when I hover over it, I'll be able to see how many contacts did I make, how many accounts were contacted, and how many accounts are actually available in the state to contact. Now, one other thing I want to filter on this visual is I want to make sure that I'm only showing highlights of states where there has been one or more contacts made. Now, you may not want to do that, but in this case, it helped me drill down into the map a little bit, and I'm just seeing states where contacts were made. And notice that it got rid of things and zoomed in for me automatically. Now, one formatting change, I'm going to go change the colors. I hit the function key next to colors. It says, what's your function? So I'm going to say, hey, based on the account of activities in that state, I want to change the colors. So if it's a low count in a state, let's start with light yellow instead of light blue, the default. I'm going to leave dark blue as a default in there because yellow and blue, those go together great, right? So now I can see I tend to have states with a lot of contacts or not many or none at all. But there's my hover over. In Texas, I've made 2 contacts on one account, but there are 7 to choose from. In Minnesota, there's been 1 of each. In Washington State, I've only made 1 contact with 1 account. There are 49 other accounts I could be contacting in that state. So that can tell me something as a salesperson or a sales manager around how should I spread my efforts a little bit more. So that's it. We're done with designing our first and second pages of this report with a lot of really cool visuals built into them.